They formed two handshake lines by the first base dugout before Saturday's game at Citi Field, ballplayers in crisp white pinstripe jerseys with Mets across the front. The gray-haired men had patches on their left sleeves commemorating the 100th anniversary of Major League Baseball. The younger guys had patches in the same spot for year number 150. "They can do it, like we did. You got to believe in yourself," Ed Kranepool had just said, addressing the current Mets from a microphone near the pitcher's mound. "Good luck. You have half a season. I wish you the best so that we can celebrate in October." Kranepool, 74, got a new kidney this spring and has more reason than anyone else to believe. He saw it all as a player, from 120 losses in 1962 when he made his debut at 17 years old, fresh from James Monroe High School in the Bronx, to the World Series title of 1969. He stayed another decade and set the record for games as a Met. The franchise did right by its original Miracle Men this weekend. 15 were honored Saturday with keys to the city from Mayor Bill de Blasio, a parade in vintage Mustangs down the newly named Seaver Way, and a heartfelt pre-game tribute. Relatives of those who have died were there, too. Tom Seaver has dementia and has retreated from public life, but 4 grandsons threw ceremonial first pitches to Duffy Dyer, Jerry Grote, Cleon Jones, and Jerry Koosman. The fans got giveaway pennants with a smiling Mr. Met and the names of the storied roster. For half a century, their inspiration has lived on with a lot of us in a very personal way, said Mr. de Blasio, wearing a blue shirt and orange tie at a news conference with the players. He cited a reason for the team's unlikely triumph: a pitching staff for the ages. "You're not going to see many like that again." Part of the charm of the 1969 World Series, when the Mets slew the heavily favored Baltimore Orioles in 5 games, were the unlikely heroes: Ron Swoboda, Al Weiss, J.C. Martin, a smudge of shoe polish. But it was the pitching staff, with its 2.99 earned run average and franchise record 28 shutouts, that carried the team to 100 regular season wins. The staff was so strong in the World Series that Nolan Ryan pitched just once in relief and Tug McGraw was not needed at all. "I think the best advantage you can have is being a little bit better than conventional wisdom," said Swoboda, the right fielder whose sprawling catch saved Game 4 for Seaver. "Conventional wisdom is usually behind the curve, and I think with those good arms besides Seaver and Koosman you had Gary Gentry, Jim McAndrew, Tug McGraw, Nolan Ryan in the only World Series he was ever in. We snuck up on some people. There was still more talent below." The Mets had 2 minor leaguers, then John Matlack and Jim Bibby, who would go on to start Game 7s of the World Series in the next decade and pitch into the 80s. They were loaded. Yet the Mets did not win another championship until 1986, underscoring just how precious their first title was, and how even the game's most prized commodity, dominant young pitching, can break your heart. That lesson comes as these Mets near a crossroads. With only a month before the July 31 trading deadline, they may not have half a season, as Kranepool said, to fashion their own miracle. The Mets entered Saturday's game with the Atlanta Braves on a 6-game losing streak that had dropped their record to 37-46. Only 2 National League teams, the San Francisco Giants and the Miami Marlins, were further away from a playoff spot. Within a few weeks, then, the Chief Operating Officer Jeff Wilpon and General Manager Brodie Van Wagenen may finally be forced to concede that this year's conventional wisdom was wrong. Acquiring a closer Edwin Diaz and a collection of veterans, Robinson Cano, Jed Lurie, Wilson Ramos, Justin Wilson, looked good in the winter but much less so in the summer. A few years ago, the Mets had hoped that their trove of young pitching would lead them to glory. They came close in 2015 when Matt Harvey, Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard and Steven Matz started in the World Series. That series also lasted 5 games and finished in Flushing, but the Kansas City Royals, not the Mets, were the winners. For that generation of Mets arms, the 2015 NL pennant will almost certainly be the pinnacle. Harvey is long gone, with a back injury and a 7.50 ERA in Anaheim. He is much less of a threat to haunt the Mets than Ryan, another hard-throwing right-hander who wound up with the Angels. While deGrom is signed through 2023, Syndergaard, Matz and Zach Wheeler might as well be traded while they still have value. Build around deGrom, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil and a few others, and see where it leads. There is, at least, one hopeful comparison in the Mets annals, 1973, a season like this that took place 4 years after a World Series breakout. The 1973 Mets were actually one game worse than these Mets at the same point, 36-47, but rallied to win a weak NL East at 82-79 and reach Game 7 of the World Series against Oakland. Of course, the odds of these Mets rising while the Braves and others fold would seem to be quite remote. Time is running out, and they may have used up their miracles long ago. I'm a Met fan, Swoboda said, with a sigh. It's not easy.